had my E82 135i now for I think just over 3 months, and apart from being absolutely smitten with it, I feel like I actually know this car pretty well now. So I thought I'd take the opportunity while the weather is still good, as he says, currently being blinded by the sun, to talk about the things I like about most with this car. And hopefully, if you're considering one, thinking about it, on the fence about it, this hopefully will help you make a decision. So let's explore that. Let's start off with number one, styling. Now, when these generations of BMWs were first released, sort of in the late noughties, they actually weren't overly popular. People didn't like the sort of, I guess, angel halo light effect, whatever you want to call it, and sort of curvy nature of the E generations. And I can kind of see where they were coming from back in the day. I mean, I was only kind of a kid back then. Someone actually had an E92 M3 in red on my road when I was growing up, and I actually didn't like that when it was first launched. Before that, they had an E46 M3 and then traded it over to the E92, and yeah, I always thought that was not a good choice. But these things have definitely aged well, and I just think they're really growing into their styling. I think the coupe, being the E82 of the 1 Series, just looks absolutely stunning. I think I've said it in a previous video, you know, sort of that rear end side view that you have of these, they just look absolutely incredible. I think it also comes down to the colour. I think this sort of, I think it's Alpine white, is just a really good option for these. I think the white really makes it pop, and you can kind of see that all the sort of styling cues and details that, you know, the designer intended you to see. But yeah, overall styling of these, I think, has aged really well, and they're just turning into a really pretty looking car. Sorry, I'm being absolutely blinded by the sun here. It was perfectly fine before, and now I'm being absolutely murked by it. Wheel choice makes a huge difference, I think, to the E82. I think the stock wheel options that came with the 1 Series weren't actually particularly nice. Again, I mentioned previously, I'm looking at taking this car on track and have been exploring potential, you know, additional wheel options to accommodate sort of track tires. And I did consider OEM ones, but yeah, they're just kind of ugly and yeah, not a fan. So yeah, wheel choices are quite important for this, and I don't think you'll be surprised to see that a lot of the options for these second-hand now do include choices where people have made aftermarket wheel additions, because yeah, the stock ones just aren't particularly good. I'm also going down what appears to be Mount Everest right now, and the suspension in this is rather stiff. Not from factory, but yeah, the previous owner of this did do a few little mods to the suspension, and right now a bit uncomfortable on these quite low profile tyres. If it looks bad, it feels bad as well. So that's styling. What's next? Well, I don't think we can go too far with these cars without talking about the engine, and that in this one is the N55, which genuinely has surprised me so much in the short time I've had this car. I know it's obviously a variant of the engine that went in the first generation M2, so no surprise there that it is a good engine, but it suits this car so well. Not only does it obviously make this car incredibly quick with the amount of power that it's got, with at standard I think had about 350. I think this one is probably closer to about 400 after our previous owner made some adjustments. But yeah, not only does it make it quick, it just makes it so torquey and dynamic to drive. The acceleration on this genuinely pins you back in your seat, and the noise that accompanies it. I mean, given this is a turbocharged engine, the noise that it makes with the inline six is stunning. I think I mentioned previously I did consider, and you know, I still would happily consider it within reason, one of the F80 or F8X M3 or M4s, just because they're obviously a bit more of a kind of modern day version that you could potentially daily. But a friend of mine has one of those. He actually has a CS with the S55, and you know, although that is a better car in pretty much every way, the noise just is not for me. So I don't think it can be understated how nice this engine sounds in this car. So yeah, sorry, I'm literally looking at a blue E82 there that looks like it's been freshly cleaned and it's stunning. So yeah, they're definitely growing in popularity, these. Or maybe when you have one, you just notice them more. I don't know. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so if engine output and, you know, soundtrack is important to you, then the box is well and truly ticked with the M55 in this. Just to point out, in case you didn't know, the N55 was only in the 135i for a very short period. I think it was late 2010, early 2011 till end of 2012. So very short production cycle that they kind of just did as part of the LCI facelift on these. Variants before that got the N54, which is by no means a bad engine. You know, if you're into your tuning, that is probably the one to get. It has massive tuning potential due to it being twin turbo, which this is single turbo but got twin scrolls. I'm going to pretend like I know really what that means. But yeah, if tuning is what you're into and you want to make massive horsepower and massive gains, then the N54, so earlier variants of the E82, are the ones for you. If you want sort of, I guess, a tad more reliability, slightly better sounding engine, and the option of a DCT gearbox, which you got with the M55, then the later variants, which do command a slightly higher price on the used market, are probably better options for you. And I suppose that brings us on quite nicely to the gearbox. In particular in this, the DCT that you get on the M55 variants for those few years. This works so well with the N55. Like, it is a pairing almost made in heaven. And for a car this small, to have this kind of setup with engine and gearbox pairing, it's just mental. You don't get that in modern cars. You don't get even that in some high performance cars nowadays. So to have it in something this small, this compact, the shifting is honestly fantastic. I've obviously owned a Porsche Cayman before, which had the PDK gearbox. Yes, that is slightly better, but for a car this price, I don't know what more you can really ask for. There's nothing that even comes close in this price range of about 7 to 10 grand where you get this kind of setup. The downshifts are absolutely instantaneous, and it just adds to that dynamic driving that you just, I know I keep saying it, you just don't expect from a car of this value and in reality of this kind of stature. There's no cars out there now, especially in this day and age, that are at the lower end of, I guess, a brand's offering like the 1 Series, where you get such good value for money and you're provided with, you know, things that you pretty much got in higher end versions. You know, the DCT, it's slightly different to the one you got in the E92 M3 that they offered, but it's not too far off. And nowadays, you just don't get any DCT in BMWs at all, as far as I'm aware. Like I said, to have it in something that is low on the value scale, but also low on the totem pole of models in the lineup from BMW, it's just something you won't see again. So yeah, make the most of it and grab them while you can. So that's the gearbox. Like I said, it makes this car fantastic to drive, and it's an awesome pairing for the M55 engine. It's a shame they couldn't do it with the M54. I think that just got a standard, is it a Steptronic gearbox? I don't actually know, but it is definitely not a DCT. So if you want a DCT and that is what you lust after, there's only a finite amount of them available. So yeah, keep an eye out, because I don't think there will be that many available for much longer. So that's the gearbox. What's next? Well, also on the subject of things you just don't get anymore is the steering feel. Now, the steering in this is hydraulic, which, for anyone who knows anything about cars, is usually referred to as a more superior version of fly-by-wire steering. I think that's sort of subject to debate and a bit up to personal preference. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't think modern steering is too bad. I think in some cases, and depending on the car, it can be a little bit lifeless. But again, it is down to the certain car and the certain manufacturer. But there is definitely something to be said about hydraulic steering in this car. I don't know if it's just the full package being offered of the engine, gearbox, the size of the car, and the steering feel. But to me, the steering in this just feels so responsive and really nicely weighted. And yes, because it is hydraulic, it does feel heavier than most steering, but you just feel, as cliche as it is, really connected to the road. You feel all the undulations, all the bumps, and weirdly, it just makes it feel faster. You just feel more in control, which I guess would make sense because you are more attached to the car. You know, there's less sort of computer interference between you and the thing you're driving. So I guess it makes sense. But yeah, it's just something I really, really appreciate and really, really like about this car. So again, if steering feel and that almost a bit more analog feel is something you kind of crave from one of these cars, then again, this does tick the box very, very well. So we've covered the styling, the engine, the gearbox, and the hydraulic steering. What's the fifth thing? Now for me, number 5 has got to be the price. This thing cost me just under £7,000. Granted, it's done 120,000 miles, but I honestly cannot think, and I have not found, a better overall package that ticks all these boxes that I personally wanted, that also gets such a high spec for such a sort of low totem pole car for under £7,000. I honestly can't find anything that even comes close to this package for similar money. Like, you know, we're not talking about some sort of dodgy brand here. We're talking about BMW, one of the most well-liked and most lusted over brands in the automotive world. And what they've given this car is nothing short than amazing. And it's not something that you'll ever see repeated. It sounds like I'm going OTT, but you really won't. They don't make cars like this anymore. And to have a car like this that I believe is going to be a future classic, it's never going to be one of the high ranking ones, but it's going to definitely rank at some point. To have something like this at such a low value that is so affordable to so many people, to have a car that is this well equipped, that well and truly punches above its weight for just under £7,000 now, is just nothing short of phenomenal. And I honestly believe it's one of the best car bargains out there right now. I firmly do. I'm not just, you know, saying that with rose-tinted glasses because I have one. I firmly stand by that statement. And if you are in the market for something like this, then I would really, really recommend you jump on them as soon as you can. So yeah, I think they're only going to become rarer and rarer as we go forward. And I just don't think they'll ever be lower than this price-wise. You know, they're also in a bit of a weird market where you can get them for under £7,000 like me. There's also ones with similar mileage for sort of 10 and 12 where people have, I guess, maybe fettled with them a little bit and are kind of expecting a bit more of a return on their investment from parts. But yeah, the market is a bit weird, but like I said, still so low. And I guess adding to the value bit, which we can either keep as number 5 or maybe have a bonus as number 6, and that's maintenance costs. Because this isn't an M car, it doesn't command M car servicing and M car parts. So actually keeping one of these on the road, whether you do it yourself or through a garage, is actually pretty reasonable. You know, you're not paying extortionate amount for parts. And I suppose in addition to that, you also have other running costs. You know, fuel is probably the same as most cars that are high performance. You know, you're not going to be able to run this on a shoestring and it is going to drink fuel. But insurance is pretty low because they're not an M car and, you know, they're not associated that much with, you know, loads of crashes and loads of incidents. And because it's an older car, it's not usually that more expensive to insure them. Same for tax. You know, as an example, in the UK, an E92 M3 now, I think, is about to, probably from next April, breach £800 a year. Right now it's about £760. This is only £385, and it's not going to go up huge amounts. It'll only be done on an inflationary basis. So again, not horrifically expensive to run and maintain. And I just think all those things combined with the low ownership costs, running costs, and actual value of the car, it's very hard to think what else do you get from something else like an M car other than a bit of flashy prestige compared to something like this. I don't really see where the value proposition is for me. Would I like an M3 or an M4? Yes. But right now, I'm finding it really hard to justify that purchase in my head and get rid of this. That might change in the future, but right now, like I said, I honestly think this is one of the best and, if not the number one car bargain, especially on the BMW front right now. Anyway, I hope that brief summary was fairly useful to you if you are in the market for one of these, or if you just came along for the ride, then I hope you are more informed than you were at the beginning. If there is anything else you want to see about this car, then do let me know and drop any requests in the comments below, because it is my car and it is readily available for more videos, and I do plan to do a lot more videos and content on this. So like I said, I'm happy to accommodate any requests, reasonable requests that is, that you have. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, and if for some reason you're not already subscribed to the channel, then do give that button a little slap for me. It really does help. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Cheers guys.